Hello, true duelists. It's YGO Strat's Yu-Gi-Oh! Single Card History. We're going to be talking about some of the cards that have impacted Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the years, and some of the other ones that didn't. Today's card, the best rank 5 that doesn't rank up into a negate, Constellar Pleiades. Pleiades was first released in Hidden Arsenal 7, Knight of Stars. And I learned making this video that Hidden Arsenal sets sometimes have names and aren't just numbered. It only took me a decade. Still, it was a secret rare in the pack it released in 2013, and one of 3 cards to deserve their own video from that exact set. Man, that set had some good stuff in it. Still, this was Pleiades' debut. Other notable reprints for it include a Peasant Rare in the Star Pack from 2015, as well as the Shatterfoil Rare print from the same set that I don't know anyone who cares for it. It got a Gold Rare print in 2016's Premium Gold, Infinite Gold, and funny enough, it did not get the Premium Gold Rare print in Premium Gold, instead getting that printing in Maximum Gold. 2020. And if you're especially lucky, you maybe got the Jizz Rare misprint of it. Very nice. For time on the ban list, it's been unlimited at 3 since its release, and will probably stay there for the rest of the game if you have to ask me. A rank 5 light attribute warrior type Xyz monster with 2500 attack and 1500 defense. Its materials to summon are 2 level 5 light monsters specifically, and its effect reads: once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 card on the field. Return that target to the hand. Pleiades is one of my favorite kinds of monsters. It's great, but it ain't broken. It's splashable, but not super generic, and its effect's so damn solid, it's seen play for a decade as of now, and will almost certainly see play for years after it whenever a deck can make it. The card's flexibility in its usage is great. The obvious play is that this card can bounce monsters from the opponent. They summon a tuner to the field, bounce it back to the hand before they can even make the synchro, or wait until they do make the synchro, and then bounce the synchro, making them waste their materials. Alternatively, you can use its effect to bounce back row, an anti-spell set preventing you from using spell cards? Not for long. Even better is bouncing a spell or trap during the opponent's end phase on the turn they set that card, meaning that they don't get to chain it in response and forcing them to wait an entire another turn before even getting the chance to play them. And then there's using it to bounce your own cards as well, since it doesn't specify opponents. Common play in Constellar decks was if the opponent, say, used a dark hole, or even just didn't make a play on their own turn worth interrupting, you could bounce your own Tenki and then use it again on your turn. It's a very strong effect, and these factors have meant that it's seen play in just about every deck that can make it. In terms of what decks have played it, fittingly enough, it showed up in its own home deck on debut, with Constellar being a very solid strategy in 2013 and 2014 when we weren't in specifically ruler spellbook format. Constellar don't struggle to make the card much at all. As a matter of fact, this guy's the play to make whenever possible for that deck. With Kaos, or however I'm expected to pronounce that card, being able to manipulate the levels of the monster as needed, things like Pollux Algeti? No shot that's right, and Sombra make it very easy to get 2 level 4s on board. The deck was effectively Pleiades Turbo, or as I called it in 2014, make Pleiades the deck. Or Shockmaster if you were sweating it out, but we were having fun and I was just making Pleiades, okay? Constellar was a solid deck for its time, but soon enough there was a deck, or even just engine, or however you'd like to refer to it, that would replace them for accessing Pleiades. The artifacts are all light level 5 monsters and have the means to summon themselves when destroyed on the opponent's turn. Plus, thanks to their powerful effects, plenty of people mained cards to revive them from the graveyard to put them on the field, but these effects activated on summon, popping cards or locking extra deck or whatever. After they resolve, these are just vanillas on your board. And what do we do with vanillas on board? That's right, folks, bunny rules apply. We make Xyz. We Xyz summon. Overlaying 2 artifacts into Pleiades was one of the best plays to make with them in a number of decks, most notably starting with Hat. Hat, Hand's Artifact Trap Tricks, was not a deck known for its explosive extra deck plays, instead being a control deck known for using trap cards to disrupt the opponent's plays, whether that trap was a searched out bottomless trap hole or an artifact sanctum to summon an artifact from the deck. Because the deck was known more so for its main deck disruptions, it had plenty of room in its extra deck for tech cards. And while it's mainly known for rank 4 plays, it was not unheard of to play 2 copies of Pleiades in the rank 5 slot, because the bounce effect was just that good. And in part because Pleiades can be used to overlay into Ptolemy M7 to serve as a beater, as well as bounce cards from either player's graveyard, recover your resources, disrupt their plays on your turn, but still, or just 27 beater. Not everyone's out here making crazy boxes, okay? Attack stats do matter sometimes. This would set the trend for just about every deck that played artifacts, with Pleiades continuing to see play in decks like Artifact Shaddoll, often being the first monster summoned using 2 of your artifacts on board. Speaking personally, I can remember winning a finals at a locals once because I made Pleiades with 2 morale attacks and was able to get out El Shaddoll Winda. My opponent at the time was playing Lightsworn rulers specifically, and despite having Judgment Dragon in hand, more than enough Lightsworns in grave, and me being on next to no life points, he couldn't out the board, and I won the day. Clearly that was because of Pleiades, and had nothing to do with the floodgate on my board, but I remember that to this day. And that is another application that I fondly love with this card. Just for a change of pace, I'd like to mention how Pleiades was played during Burning Abyss when the deck first debuted. Because, yeah, in its earliest incarnation, BA played Pleiades. It would make it by using the card Rank Up Magic Astral Force. This is a card that could rank any Xyz you control into an Xyz that is 2 ranks higher with the same type and attribute. And both Dante and Pleiades are light warriors. This wasn't the best deck at the time, but I've always loved this version of the deck. It also used this card to make things like Tyrus, Keeper of Genesis, because Mech-equipped Anganir's a thing, Volcasaurus was accessible through Gruntosaurus, and some players even opted to play Crimson Knight Vampire Brawn through Ghost Trick Alucard. It's bricky, it's worse than what the deck would become by a mile, but man did I find it so cool. But since Dante was the card that got the deck rolling for it, Pleiades was more often than not the thing you were summoning with the rank up spell, and I like that shit. Can we do more of that? Yeah, but we probably won't. Pleiades' next deck would end up being in Cosmo decks, since it has little trouble getting 2 level 5 lights on board, playing Slip Rider already to clear back row, and being able to summon Slip Riders as it floats down from a bigger ship, or by tagging up into them from a lower level pilot. It wasn't a play made often. More often, Cosmo players preferred to leave their ships on field as the float, but speaking personally, when I played Cosmo, this was about the only Xyz I made that wasn't exactly Cyber Dragon Nova into infinity. Pleiades was even good enough to be played in Pepe. Yeah, Pepe, that tier 0 pendulum deck that still has cards on the ban list to this day as I make this video. That deck could spit out level 4 monsters with no trouble, and one of its #1 plays was to make Tellarknight Ptolemaeus, a monster that can detach 3 materials to rank up into any rank 5. Most of the time, it would be ranked up into Cyber Dragon Nova to make Infinity, but Ptolemaeus' effect is a quick effect, meaning if they'd already made an Infinity, or if they were only to make Ptolemaeus with 2 materials on their turn, they could use the end phase effect to attach a copy of any Tellarknight monster to it as material, and then use its effect as a quick effect to detach 3 and rank up into Pleiades on the opponent's turn. Meaning that even in a tier 0 format, this simple targeted bounce effect was enough to be worth playing. After the fall of Pepe, Cosmo would continue to play Pleiades, and it was still a relevant deck all the way into the later 2016. But it was not the only deck playing Pleiades at this time. Extra Deck Monarchs, or Brilliant Monarchs depending on who you ask and what year you're talking about it in, was another deck playing the Bouncy Boy. The Prime Monarch is a trap card that could banish any Monarch spell or trap from your graveyard to summon itself as a level 5 light fairy, which means you can use it as tribute fodder to summon your Monarchs, but they made it level 5, and it's light, and they gave players lots of options to do with that. Level 5 meant it could be used as Xyz materials using 2 copies of itself, and with the ability to summon it from your grave as a quick effect on either player's turn, it was easy to get around it even with its hard once per turn. And like I said, these cards are vanillas on board. It's bunny rules. You know we'd be overlaying with this stuff, Konami, come on. There have been a few other decks that Pleiades has shown up in. Some ABC builds played it. One common build for ABC at the time was simply playing artifacts, as I've already mentioned, since we know the card synergies with it by now. And some people played it in Galaxy ABC as well, which could use the ABC engine as fodder to summon Galaxy Soldier, a level 5 light machine that can summon itself from hand by discarding any lights, and even search a copy of itself on summon. Once again, Pleiades is used alongside Cyber Dragons Nova and Infinity, and shows up because of all the rank 5s at this point in the game. It's still one of the best. Pleiades even shows up as recently as Eldritch decks, because once again, a meta deck is playing continuous traps that can summon themselves as monsters and do so by summoning themselves as level 5 light monsters. Vaquero of the Golden Land and Conquistador of the Golden Land are 2 traps that when summoned while you control an Eldritch, the Golden Lord, have solid disruption effects, serving as DD Crow and Artifact Morale Tech on summoned respectively, after which they just become vanilla zombies zombies, and that means it's Xyz time, and even a decade out from the bunny, we still follow his lessons, because once again, Pleiades is a great card to overlay to in Eldritch decks, often being the only rank 5 card in the deck, which means that with the entire Link toolbox, all modern Xyz and Synchros, Pleiades was still one of the best toolbox options to make just shy of a decade out from its initial release. Overall, Pleiades has been a fantastic staple of just about every deck that has access to it. Plenty of decks have played it that I haven't even gone into detail about. Cyber Dragons, hell, even some Blue Eyes decks played Galaxy Soldier back in 2016 and played this card. It speaks volumes to me that it's always right there next to Cyber Dragon Infinity in terms of playability every time a deck has access to it. They just want to play these two cards. It helps that Pleiades paired so well with Artifacts, one of the better and more splashable engines in the game for about a half decade at least, and those help to keep this card relevant. But even without it, this card has seen play in Extra Deck Monarch or Eldritch and things like that. And as long as decks come about that can make level 5 light monsters, you can expect to see this card in some Extra decks. That bounce may be once per turn, and it may be targeted, but damn if it isn't great. And so that's our look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Single card history, Constellar Pleiades. Stay tuned for our next video, and feel free to suggest some cards to review or what type of video you'd like to see. Don't forget to like, and as always, subscribe to YGO Strats so you can impress your smoking Italian wife, and so you too can be a true duelist.